Hello and welcome. My name is Jack and I will be teaching INTC 3283 for the fall 2024 semester. What's that class about? Introduction to Data Management. Now, before you fall asleep, hold on. We're just getting started here. But there are two textbooks that I have put on the list of required textbooks for this class. And if you ordered them, wondering why I am breaking your back with two big honkin' textbooks, there is a reason. First things first, let's dive into the one that is most applicable to what the course's title is, which is Database Systems Concepts. I've seen this textbook has been used at a handful of other universities as well. Cornell University has a database introduction to databases class on YouTube. You can actually go through the content, and if you want to dive into some super deep nitty-gritty details, I think that's actually a very valid course to supplement your knowledge on as we go through this class. So I'm just going to throw that out there, that there are other courses that leverage this and that you will be beneficial. You'll receive good benefits of participating in that knowledge as well. However, I found that, at least if you learn it all similar to how I do, I love hands-on knowledge that I can apply. I can play with the concepts and really dive in deep to understand how things actually are. Theory's nice. Practice is, in fact, more practical. So in this course, I would be bored out of my gourd if I was teaching solely from this textbook. I think there's a ton of great stuff to learn in here, don't get me wrong, but I don't find teaching on all theory to be particularly enjoyable, especially when it comes to computer science. It's just too abstract, I guess you could say. So we're going to be diving into the most important concepts in here. We're going to be covering at least the first half of this textbook, not necessarily super deep in every detail, but the concepts in here this is going to be the main baseline of content of what we're diving into. So you definitely want this book. I ended up purchasing the international edition, not on purpose, but I just clicked on the database systems concept. I checked the ISBN, and what ended up shipping to me was the Indian edition. I included that version on the course material. I think it's always easier if we're all matched up on the same pages, but the other benefit was this was like $45 versus $250. So, hey, I like learning for less money. I'm sure you do as well. Okay, next book that we're going to dive into, the other big book that's half a centimeter smaller than the other one. And I guess if you have to measure a book in centimeters, we're in trouble. But this one here is the Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6 book here. This one is going to be a reference book for all the coding stuff that we're doing. I have on my bookshelf up here a whole bunch of Java and Spring tech books out there, reference books, and I've been in the industry quite a while, and I'll be honest, some books are great, most are mediocre, some are useful for like a chapter or two. So finding a good reference book that like all the way through is actually really well written is really hard. This is the one that I found that is legitimately good, that I have enjoyed opening up, where I want to learn a concept in deeper detail and understand like what components go into things. The author did a really good job putting together the content in here in a way that I actually feel is accessible, where you're diving into something being like, what is dependency injection? It's a very introductory concept when it comes to most frameworks, and it's a foundational concept of how Spring Boot is built. He does a good job explaining it. Same thing too with handling asynchronous calls, data validation. This covers how to set up your database access in here. So this book is going to be your implementation reference material, kind of if the internet's down, you can do this. You can certainly read a ton of Spring Framework documentation online. If you don't want to spend the money on there, fine. You can certainly read the Spring Framework manual. I just found this book to be immensely valuable. We won't be doing too many lectures out of this, but you're going to want to be following along. So in the list of reading for the week, I'm going to be including chapters in here that will help fill in the knowledge, so that way when it comes time to actually like writing some code, that you're going to have reference material that you can go, oh, that's what this annotation does, or this annotation is useful, and then I know how to use that. Okay, I just want to set like one more concept here. So like, I get that we have 2 huge honking textbooks, and that can be extremely overwhelming. But take heart, because what we're going to be doing in this class, like, yes, there's going to be lectures at the beginning. I'm going to do a quiz. It's not going to be worth very many points as far as like your grade is concerned or anything like that. But that's just so I understand where everyone is at in the course from the previous week. I want to make sure that everyone's really understanding the concepts in here. We can cover a lot of ground or we can cover a little bit of ground. But generally, if we cover a little bit of ground, we can go super deep. If we cover a lot of ground, it's going to be pretty shallow knowledge. I would prefer that everyone in this class has some really solid tools under their belt, and as well as being able to know where to look things up next in the future. So to me, success in this class is that you will have built some tools that interact with databases. You'll understand what tables are, what the different appropriate data structures are to store and retrieve information in, how to join tables, how to generate useful reports, and ultimately in the form of a tool that your future colleagues can actually interface with. So what do I mean by that? Well, in my experience in the corporate world, what jobs often start out being is you get a manager and they have a report due. They're kind of tired of writing the report. So guess what? You're now in charge of the report. And the other thing that is absolutely intolerable is running the same report every single week. And now you have 1 to 4 hours of your week is now wasted running the same report. The work hasn't been reduced. It just shifted to you instead of your manager. So what if instead of having to generate that Excel every week, you could write a tool that the manager can just access once a week or can automatically receive that email at 8 a.m. on Monday. And that way you can perhaps maybe sleep in just a little bit longer. That seems like a win to me. And in my experience, in most organizations, people get really excited when they get tools that make their job easier, faster, and more reliable and consistent. So that's what we're going to be producing. We're going to be producing micro applications for the purpose of learning database management that you can actually use in your own real world life, whether you are volunteering at a church, whether you are helping out at some charity or nonprofit. Chances are they have database systems or different tools that they need to interact with. We won't be specifically diving into databases. Or exclusively. We will be diving into databases, APIs, third-party systems. But at the end of the day, these organizations have these locked in or useless pieces of information that we, as people that are custodians of this data or have been tasked with a job of producing information, we need to make that information accessible and useful. That's what we're going to be producing in this course. So I'm really excited because this, to me, checks a lot of boxes of what you want to learn out of college. I've hired quite a few computer science graduates, and there are definitely gaps that I found, like some University of Washington students. Man, they didn't even have knowledge of how to use Git and collaborate on things. We're going to do that in this class because you have to know how to do that if you're working in the real world. It's one of those frustrating things if you have to spend 1 to 3 months getting someone spun up on how to do the most basics of contribution for an organization. Sure, they might know algorithms and some other stuff, but if they don't know how to collaborate with the team, they're like dead in the water until they learn how to do the basics. So we're going to be learning practical skills that really add value to you as a student and to whichever organizations and people you decide to work with in the future. So I'm really excited. That's just a quick overview of the textbooks and the general approach for this class. So some lecture, we'll be diving into that, heavily driven through the database systems concept, as well as some of the Spring Boot 3 book in terms of we'll be doing live coding together. And that live coding together is going to be the majority of the work. It's going to be a lot of in-person stuff. We'll be dedicating, most of the Wednesdays will be dedicated to in-person work. Bring your laptop, make sure it runs either Mac OS, Windows, or Linux. I don't care which, I can work with all three. Doesn't matter to me. Chromebooks don't count, tablets don't count, phones don't count. They can't run the IDEs and you can't necessarily run all the applications. So you need a full computer to succeed in this class. I guess you could watch along and pass the quizzes and stuff and go back to your dorm or go home and write out the code from home, but you're not going to get as much out of the class as if you're on the laptop working together, building the tools and actually experiencing the learning that comes along with that. So quick overview, really excited to seeing you in just here. Oh gosh, we're about 7 days out from the class. So anyways, looking forward to seeing you. See you soon.